Ready for a digital dive? You're listening to the GZ Chop Shop Podcast, the weekly tech and gaming media podcast that breaks down the latest news, lore, and more. So plug in, because the GZ Chop Shop starts now.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of the GZ Chop Shop. I am your host, Project Itachi, joined by my good friend and co-host, Warners. And as always, we have an amazing episode lined up for you guys. But before you dive into this episode, make sure to visit thegzshop.com and grab yourself some exclusive merch. We have some amazing things in store, new items coming out each and every week. And we have a spring sale running right now. So make sure to go check that out. Promise you guys are going to love it. Up to 20% off. Go check it out right now and then come back to the episode. Now, without further ado, let's get to it. What are we talking about this week? So last week we got into something heavy about the Restrict Act. This week, I wanted first to do something a little bit lighter, but when I say just in terms of just tech and gaming, the news has just not been great. Just not great. Nintendo pulled a Microsoft, in my opinion, and that does not make me happy to say. So I don't know if you know what happened on Monday, the 27th of March. And this is pretty much, if you're a gamer and you've ever played a Nintendo, this hurts. So on March 27th, Nintendo quietly, they kind of put out a notice, but if you weren't looking for it, you did not see it. But on March 27th, Nintendo shut down their e-store for their 3DS and older console family. Now, on paper, you think, well, yeah, 3DS, Nintendo Wii U, the Wii, they're all old. Why would they keep the store open? I'm going to explain why this is actually detrimental, especially if you are a collector. The eShop, the current eShop for the Nintendo Switch, unless you pay for the subscription service month to month or year to year, your access to their classic library is non-existent. Unless you own those consoles and you have bought those games prior, and you are saying, oh man, I wish I bought that game back in the day, but I didn't. I'll get the Nintendo subscription. There's only about 150 games of their 150 classic games made available to you right now if you're on a Switch. Someone went, when they got the notice that the Nintendo was shutting down their eShop, someone went, he's a YouTuber, I do not remember his name, and he bought the entire library of 3DS and Nintendo console games, the entire library.
The amount of time that probably took, because there's not really a select all.
Yeah.
there's no like select all button.
I think he said it took him about an entire year to do that. It ran him $22,000.
Damn.
$22,000. Now, I think when he divided that up among the games, it was like, well, almost like 2,000 games. Maybe under like 1,500, something like that. It was almost 2,000 games he bought. Their current library only makes 150 of those games available for a subscription. So why does this suck? You probably ask. How are you going to play any of those classic Nintendo games now going forward? How will you access them? Unless you bought them the day they came out years ago, but on your current gen or pre-gen hardware, how will you play any of those games? And mind you, this guy donated that entire collection to the Video Game History Library. I don't know if that's the proper acronym, but they basically collect video games for prosperity purposes, especially in this day and age when everything is going digital and it's losing its value. They basically collected, so there's a record that they existed in the first place. But now with cartridges and discs slowly fading out, there's no, hey man, can I borrow that game so I can actually play it? There's none of that. So now we as gamers are cut off from like almost 1,000 games that were available until about a week ago. That paints a picture that we've talked about many times about the problem with gaming going digital. When they finally just say, we want to pull the plug, all that money, all that time invested is just gone.
Yeah, I learned it the hard way when I had so many classic PlayStation 1 games on my PS3, and then none of that transferred over to the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually they shut the PS3 store down. And then, my PlayStation 3 crapped out eventually. I mean, it got to be like 12 years old.
And then you can't play them anymore.
And now if I want to play any of those games, I could either spend the money on an original PlayStation 1 and the discs, which some of those games go for a lot of money now, or I could get on the PS5, some of those games are available and I can buy them again,
because they're not counting it from your original purchase. And retro value has skyrocketed. Like a lot of retro games that ran for maybe a few bucks, they're going up in price because of how gaming is marketed now. Everything's digital. So with Nintendo cutting off their e-store, and even with Sony, it's the same thing. We're cut off from all of those games. They're just gone. And it paints a scary picture for 5, maybe even 10 years from now. Those games you spent $100, and game prices are going up. You're spending $70 a game. You download it digitally, and then 5-10 years from now, when the consoles have moved on and they shutter their stores, they say, oh, you'll still be able to re-download games you already bought. How long is that going to last before they fade that out? And then it's literally just, investment gone. All of it just gone. And then what made a lot of people upset that were tracking Nintendo's shuttering of the eShop was in the FAQ, people were asking, do you have any plans to move those libraries to the Switch, to anywhere? And Nintendo just blatantly said, yeah, we've got no plan to do anything with the older games. So they're just gone.
Because they may or may not be released at another time, maybe in the future on the next Switch or the next platform.
As a
or
subscription
some other method as a subscription service. Or some of those games will, maybe they'll be not through a subscription and you just purchase them however. But yeah, it's on one hand, I understand it a little bit when it comes to the upkeep of the servers. I'm sure it costs money to keep X amount of things and information and data on a server to be available. However, we're talking about a very, very wealthy gaming company, for one, who I'm sure gets plenty of money from subscriptions and downloads and games. And we all know that the Switch has not done poorly at all since it released. It's actually done the best ultimately in sales all around. But yeah, I don't get it. I understand it from a business aspect, like from that perspective. But ultimately it's just gonna cost everyone more money if you want to play that game, and you have to find the loopholes or, buy older gaming systems and find the hard copy. And it sucks. We've truly left it. Like if you wanted to start being a collector now, it's kind of too late.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted to be a collector, you would have had to have done it growing up, or maybe 10 years ago to start collecting, because all those things that have been collected over the past couple of decades are now, for the most part, much harder to get. And a lot of it is much more expensive, especially when it comes to the games that were more rare.
That's why I'm glad I held on to my, as you can see in my background, my Nintendo 64, my PSP, my Vita, all of my 3DSs, because I learned after I traded in my GameCube that this stuff wasn't going to stick around and last forever. And I made that mistake. I traded my GameCube. Granted, I traded in for a Wii, but I learned after, I said, dang, I miss my GameCube. I wish I had kept my GameCube. Wii is amazing, but it was just something about the GameCube that was special. And so many times I wish I kept it. I'll never forget
the first time I played Resident Evil 0 on the GameCube.
Chef's kiss. Resident Evil 4.
The game was creepy.
So, yeah, it sucks because the stuff that we get now will not have the same value as the stuff from, the originators.
Oh, they've truly they've put an end to collecting and collectors. It's no longer really viable if you haven't already started and you don't already have a big collection. It's going to be incredibly difficult for you to do that. And going forward, there's really nothing to collect besides the console itself and the parts. But as far as the games go, you can't collect them anymore. Not really.
And they don't make the parts as sturdy, because my N64, I've had this since I was a child, like 10 years old. I can still run that thing. I get my plug, I get my RF cable, and boom, I can play a game. Granted, it hurts my eyes because I don't know how we were able to visualize those graphics back in the day. Those polygons are so sharp, they cut my eyes. They are blocky. But you know what? It worked. We loved it. And the machine reworks. But these modern machines, they're not built to last. They got more sophisticated parts and they do so much more, but they're meant to have a shelf life intentionally, to just like a car, to get you to come back and buy another one and keep it going, keep the money infinite. If they could put live service consoles somehow, make that a thing, they would. And that's like what they're doing with gaming, which leads me into the next topic. Live service gaming. I hate live service gaming. In theory, on paper, sounds wonderful. Your games constantly get updated. The world constantly evolves. It's this great experience. The stories expand. You don't have to buy a new game, except it's actually cheaper and easier to just buy a new game. Because when you look back in hindsight, unless they pull a No Man's Sky, which No Man's Sky owed its players and they owned up to it and they gave us the game they said they were going to give. So it's a $60 game and you're getting a lot now. If you buy No Man's Sky now, you're getting more than most AAA $70 games are going to give you. But granted, they've had years to expand on it, blah, blah, blah. But that's what games should be like. In my opinion, you pay your fee, you buy the game, and then they expand on the world. They get the funding, they keep expanding on the world. But then you get games like Destiny, Genshin Impact, Fortnite, and then even failed ones that didn't get far. And then they just get shuttered, like Anthem and Babylon's Fall, all live service gaming that basically became predatory. Battle passes, skins, little perks, a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there. You think, oh, this isn't so bad. I spent $3 here, no biggie. The game was free. And then once the game runs its life cycle course and they say the servers are shutting down, the game is done, and you look at what you spent, because if you think you won't spend any, you are sadly mistaken. The only time you won't spend money in a live service game is you did not like the game. If you like the game, you're going to eventually spend money. And when you look back and think, oh man, I got to play this game for free and I actually only spent exactly what it costs to buy a game. Even if it's over a lifetime, you still spent, if not more. And for what? Because now it's all gone. I would love for someone who, from the inception of Fortnite, that still plays Fortnite to the day Fortnite ends or the day they walk away, I would love for someone to show over the lifetime how much money they spent on Fortnite. I would love to see that. Like someone who's just like, you know what? I actually look back to see how much money I spent on Fortnite. One game.
Fortnite's one of those things. I know I've told you before. If I had the Dragon Balls, I would delete Facebook All of them. I'd delete all of Meta. I would delete Walmart, and I would delete Fortnite, like, from existence.
Because what was the average? Like a month, $80. I think for like Fortnite.
Yeah, we looked it up before, and it was depending on the source, it was between like $85 and like $111
a month.
A month was the average. That was the average somebody spends a month. Bro, that's a bill. That's a bill. Like that's a whole ass bill you're paying.
That's a whole ass bill. Heck,
I love gaming, but no game has like gotten me to like want to spend any amount of money extra on them outside an occasional expansion. I refuse to call them DLCs. In my head, expansions. That's a positive word for me, an expansion, even though we all know that the DLCs are not really expansions.
They're not. Yeah. DLC back in the day was expansion. The only reason consoles didn't call them expansions is because the PCs they coined that. World of Warcraft, Diablo, they coined that term because
which I'll give it to World of Warcraft, despite the route they've gone down with the basically it's pay for like play to pay bullshit. Their expansions are still expansions. Like they're not DLCs. Like they are expansions. I'll give them that.
Yeah. And I, don't get me wrong. There's games that I do invest in, but they hold tried and true. Like I don't play World of Warcraft, but I do play Final Fantasy 14 because they do expansions, and it's a solid, in my opinion, it's been a solid investment because I don't really have to invest that much into it. I can totally see a company remaking The Legend of the Dragoon, and for some of you guys who've never played that game, it was it's a RPG, very very similar really to like Final Fantasy and stuff. Back on the PlayStation 1, had a very niche following, and I think it's grown considerably over the decades. But there's a big push from the community to remake that game, and as it should. It's an amazing classic. It's one of my favorite classics. But it was 4 discs on the PlayStation 1. I can totally see a company coming out and being like, all right, here's the remake, but disc 2, 3, and 4 are also going to be DLCs. Like, I can see that being a fucking thing. Have you heard the jokes about ever since Budokai made its comeback trailer announcement? The internet blew up with excitement, but then the memes started, and I'm like, they're not wrong. And this proves that it's not just us overanalyzing, that everyone knows this is a problem. And it was one TikTok I remember I watched. The guy was like trying to play Budokai with his friend, and he was like, all right, let's get this character roster. And it was all the low tier characters like Chaozu and Paw and like people that you never really saw fight in the series. So he's like, all right, well, where's Goku? And it was like, get the Saiyan fighter pass now. And he was like, what? And then he went to do the Kamehameha, and it was like, unlock the Kamehameha DLC. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Gone are the days where you popped in a game and just whooped each other's asses and everything was already there at your disposal to do so. Imagine getting your ass beat in that game, and it's because they had the DLCs and the Saiyan Game Pass and you did not.
Dude, just like
you were stuck playing Yamcha, getting your ass beat by fucking Beerus.
Yep, you're playing Chaozu, and they just come at you with Ultra Instinct Goku, who just does the Kamehameha in your face.
You didn't get the destruction pass.
They paid to win.
Jesus.
But and I was talking with Brian, and I guess he's like more adaptable to it than I am. I'm stubborn. I'm like, no, because this was never a thing before. You know how you got characters in the game? You unlocked them by earning them. You went through some bullshit.
Did it give you all the characters in the game?
In the original Budokais?
Oh, no, in the original Budokai did. I'm talking about the new one coming out.
We don't know. That's the thing. That's why everyone's like, Like everyone was like excited.
The companies probably heard and they were like, oh, they're on to us.
They're on to us. Because I'm sitting there thinking about,
we'll know they're on to us if the game gets pushed back.
Oh, if the game gets pushed back, they're probably going to change that. Because like,
all right, they found us out.
That's the whole thing that like made Budokai so. Budokai was the Dragon Ball game, as close as you could get to those intense fights. Open world, destructive environments, all the transformations, tons and tons of characters for no reason, but you loved it because it was you were in Dragon Ball.
I grew up fighting with my brother over that game, man.
It was amazing.
The amount of controllers I saw that kid. I mean, granted, we were like 10, and he wasn't very happy about. I kind of nagged him on, like brothers, we talk shit, right? But man, it would always we'd play the Budokai, and I think it was like Budokai 2, and a lot of shit talking, especially for me. Everyone would get angry, and then we would just go outside and play.
I think after today, I think I'm gonna bust out my PS2 and play Budokai Tenkaichi 3. Because when they hit the Tenkaichi era, I was like, yeah, because I had Budokai 2. Also, who remembers, this is to anyone listening, who remembers the struggle of trying to get your hands on a Budokai game back in the day? For the longest time, I would try. When I finally got a GameCube, I was like, I can finally get my own copy of Budokai 2. My buddy Tristan would always bring over his Budokai 2, and I love that game. I played his game so much that on my memory card, I had every character unlocked, and I hated it when I had to give it back to him. I was like, I gotta get my own version. And it took me like a year to finally find a pre-owned copy. And then I had to pray that it worked because no one was getting up off of their Budokai games. No one.
Yeah, there wasn't like online back then. You couldn't just go online and like easily find a copy and just pay whatever money for it.
And a lot of people were like, I'm not putting in all this work of unlocking every single character in this game and then trade it in. That was an achievement before achievements. You got all 150.
Trade in your hard work, man.
Yeah, like nobody was doing that. 1,000 hours unlocking all these characters, and you want me to trade my game in?
What is it about Nintendo controllers that just feel so much more efficient with fighting games?
Ooh, I feel like for some reason in my head, I feel like Burn would have a debate with that one.
One thing though, Mortal Kombat, I don't feel would translate well to a Nintendo controller, but that's probably just because I've always played it on the PlayStation. But there's a lot of fighting games I grew up playing, and I just always felt better about them, like they were just easier.
The GameCube,
the Nintendo, and the GameCube especially.
The GameCube was very unique because it's funny that you mentioned Mortal Kombat not translating well. And not the
Switch layout, like
not the
GameCube and N64. I just really, they were efficient controllers.
N64 was weird to me, but GameCube, I played Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, if anyone remembers that game, and Mortal Kombat Deception, which was the sequel. And I played both of those on the GameCube, and I actually did pretty well. I don't know. I think something about the A button being supersized just seemed better. Like combos felt more doable.
I'm sure Burn will have some opinions on that.
Oh, absolutely. He was.
I'll see him in chat. Like, what do you mean? Like, let's talk controllers in fighting games.
Burn is definitely like PlayStation. Like he plays on every console. He's owned every console. I think, if I know him as well as I think I do, I think he would prefer the PlayStation console and the Dreamcast for fighting games.
The Dreamcast.
Oh yeah. Dreamcast had a very good design for fighting games. And a lot of people, they remember this. He and I were actually talking about it a few weeks ago. The original Soul Calibur game, Soul Blade, was on Dreamcast. And they actually had like a nice little library of fighting games on there. And I just wish the Dreamcast could get a comeback. Dreamcast was ahead of its time. Can we get like Dreamcast back, like a modern Dreamcast. Same concept, but modern.
It won't happen.
I know. Oh my gosh, Dreamcast. Because I never got to own one. And it was gone. It was done by the time I was actually able to pay and buy one.
Didn't Sega own the Dreamcast?
Mm-hmm. Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah, that's out. That's definitely out.
Yeah, and they're like in
out of the question.
I think they're like in a permanent partnership with Nintendo. Yeah. So Nintendo's not.
They were bought.
Competitor.
Like they're partnered and bought off, man.
Yeah. Man, those are the good old days.
I wonder what a modern day Sega system would be like if they were still in the game.
It would have a screen that people think no one would use. Because it was funny because people complained about it back then, but now, like, when you look at it, I remember when I was still in the Navy and one of the guys would come to work every day. He brought his Dreamcast. So during lunch, we were playing Worms on the Dreamcast. And that was like one of the few times I actually got to start playing a Dreamcast. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, if no one knew better, you would not be able to tell that this is from the 90s today. Update the screen on the controller to color and touch. It would work today. That system would work today. Like, you wouldn't even need to change the external design, swap out some of the internal parts, maybe replace, the drive with an SSD. It could have been one of the first all digital consoles, honestly. Because a Dreamcast today, if they did it, the base console could have been completely digital. With the option, you could still do disc, I guess, like if they wanted to keep the disc on for collector value.
As we complain about digital.
Dreamcast
was doing it pretty well.
The Dreamcast was doing it because that memory card was a portable game in itself that was in the controller. So you could have the console be disc/digital to fit modern day standard. The controller itself, with the screen that was the size of a old school cell phone, could double as memory and portable gaming. Give it its extended battery life, unplug that thing, and you could like have it where it saves certain games, like, based on the size of your memory cards. So if they wanted to make money, sell expandable memory cards, expandable screens. Boom. Slot that into your controller, and you could basically have like a Steam Deck, but it's all one console. Play with your friends. Oh, you got to go on a road trip. Oh, you're on your way to, you're on your school bus. Take your controller. Your game console is now with you. And it's already, it would have been a Vita before a Vita, a Switch before a Switch. Dreamcast. Damn, looking back, I wonder if Switch got the idea from Dreamcast.
I think they paved the way for a lot of innovation, and I think that's why they were ultimately bought out.
Yeah, because the Dreamcast could have beat the Switch to what it is now, because that's what the Switch just basically did. That's literally what the Switch did, and the Dreamcast could have been.
Like describing the Switch, talking about what the Dreamcast could have been, you're like, oh my god,
oh my gosh. But look how long it took Nintendo to do it, and Dreamcast was already halfway there years ago. And the Switch did it, 2015? Dreamcast was out in the 90s. Had Dreamcast been able to stick around, a modern day Dreamcast would have probably been mind boggling.
Is the Switch already that old?
Switch is pretty old. Yeah, I think the Switch is either 2017 or 2016.
Wow.
Because I think I got mine. I got out of the Navy in 2017. I think I got mine like 2018, early 2018. It had already been out for like a year or two.
Oh yeah, March 2017, man.
March 2017.
We're 6 years in.
Yep.
Year 7's usually when a company starts showcasing their new one.
Yeah, and there's been rumors that Nintendo's got something in the works. Everyone's calling it a Nintendo Pro, but I blame Sony for that term.
If they were smart, they would just make it the Switch 2 and allow everything to be transferable like over. No issues. It would just be an updated Switch 2.
So I just want to ask as a final thought, what do you think a Switch 2 would look like?
Probably the same fucking thing, and they would just change a couple of colors. Like, honestly.
Would they name one Nintendo console that looks like its predecessor?
But name one Nintendo console that's been as innovative as the Switch has been. Like, there's little debate there with how good the Switch really is, and how well it transfers from console version to just being in the palm of your hands. Like, it's truly a really great design.
So I know a lot of
to
people
go above that would be. I'm sure it's possible. Don't look at me. I don't invent this shit, but it's just I can't think of like what they would do to like make it that much more incredible besides software.
Well, yeah,
and hardware.
I mean, like I wouldn't sleep on the Wii, the GameCube.
We're just making up systems now.
Yeah, hey, if anyone uses that, I said it here first, I expect royalties. The GameCube was pretty innovative. People gave it shit back in the day because back then we didn't know any better. But to this day, people are like, damn, I love that system. It was actually really amazing. The Wii was a good transference because they had backwards compatibility. It was such a sleek design. Everyone wanted it. You couldn't get it for almost like a year after it came out. It wasn't as bad as the PS5 because things weren't as bad back then. But the Wii paved the way. Motion in-game. Xbox with their Kinect couldn't nail that. But the Wii was actually pretty good. Nobody liked the Wii U, not because it was crappy hardware, but just they didn't have a great library of games and they didn't import a lot of the Japanese games to us. But they had the handheld concept. Start your game on the TV, transfer it to your your mobile handheld, and you can keep playing. Parents want to use the TV, kids can keep playing the game, everyone's happy. That was innovative, thought outside the box. So they keep evolving, and I'm like, yo, what's the next thing the Switch is going to be? A projector? Like, wristwatch? Like, I would be kind of curious to see where Nintendo goes in their design.
The Switch wrist.
Switch wrist. Also coining that, royalties. But yeah. But anyway, that's all the time we've got for this episode. Kind of going down the rabbit hole that if you guys didn't get any games from the Nintendo shop, unfortunately the only way to get them is ROMs. We'll be very careful about that. If ROMs are still a thing, Nintendo's big on piracy, so it's weird that they would cut off access to their games but then get mad if you pirate them. I don't know. Nintendo's
commences to pirate old games. Hang on.
Yeah, Nintendo's weird. But anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts as always. Visit our website, osntachmedia.com. Leave us your thoughts on the show page for the GZ Shop. And once again, do not forget to visit thegzshop.com and check out all of our merchandise from apparel, drinkware, tons of new stuff added each and every week. And we've got a spring sale going right now, so make sure to go and check that out. Anyway, you guys have been amazing. Thank you for spending your time with us. Take care of yourself and each other. We'll catch all you wonderful people on the next podcast.